Hello and welcome to this Wagtail CMS live coding hangout. Let me just check the audio real quick. Looks like we're a little bit loud. How's that? All right. We're going to continue working on some features for the Western Friend website. I've got several issues here on GitHub where you can find our full source code at github.com/westernfriend. And I think these issues are relatively minor, so I'm going to group them all into one pull request. And in a subsequent session, I might include a new feature, a new Wagtail block, a custom block that's just for creating space in pages. So let's just dig straight into the code. Basically, we're working on a magazine website and magazine and community website. And in the process of developing this, we've added a lot of features, including e-commerce and magazine subscriptions and publications. And now we're sort of in a period of getting feedback, and a lot of the feedback is focused on small changes. There could be some major changes needed that we haven't discovered yet. But so far, a lot of these, as mentioned, are just visual tweaks and things like that. So we're going to first zoom in on these headings. So we've got some default heading sizes here. And these are coming from our, basically from our Bootstrap theme. And Mary would like to override these. Interesting. These are also based on the view width. I mean, I'm not sure how wise it is for us to sort of override some of this stuff, but in any case, here we are. So let's do it. I think there's a lot more evolution that has been put into the Bootstrap themes not defaults, but yeah, basically what we've inherited. Core static CSS. So just organizing this more or less by specificity and alphabetically. And we're going to do font size. .1, 1.7. 1.4, 1.2, and 1.1, which is basically almost the same size as the body font. Let's see if this changes. Looks a little bit bigger. All right, so those changes are taking effect. Fairly straightforward, and what we can do is just commit this change. Closing that issue. I think linking the whole issue should work the same as just specifying the issue number. Let's find out. If not, I'll manually close it. All right. So if I open a pull request though, and it fixed that. All right, so we'll just continue that pattern there. All right, so number 387 has a commit that will close it. So let's go bottom to top. Overall background color, I think this is fairly straightforward. So the background is kind of a plain white. Spec body. Color. So we can background color should be hash. Which is almost white. Yeah, slightly green. Yep. Okay. Is that just me or does that look worse? Maybe it's the angle of my monitor, slightly bluish now. I can't tell. And anyway, that's what is requested. So that just references the issue, doesn't close it. Okay. So overall background color, yeah, this was an interesting one. So we have this, you know, a lot of this is aesthetic, as I mentioned, and the editor would like to be able to control or select colors for various things, particularly headings. And so we added a feature that's this kind of custom heading block, and it allows you to optionally specify a heading color. It's not used very commonly, but it is there, it's flexible. But there was some confusion, I think, where essentially the default heading color is this light, slightly gray. It's really dark gray. And, you know, it's coming from Bootstrap. And we like that. I think that's it's a pretty good convention, design convention. And the problem was, whoops, when we define the page, oh, that's, I guess, correct. And we use this custom header block. By default, it doesn't have a value. It's a nullable field. It's a nullable field. And I think this is a good pattern. When we view this live, actually it's working correctly. Yeah, and then it'll just take the color from the default CSS. If I edit new heading and give it a color, and you know, this is exactly how it should function, essentially. Then publish, view live. It looks inconsistent, right? So this is the way it's designed to work. When you change a color, it's not going to affect all the headings colors on the page, so you have to, it's left in the hands of the editor. The problem is that they can't change the heading for the level. It's basically a foot gun, and we've gone around it a bit, and I sort of understand why it's not very common, and particularly Wagtail is not supporting font color change selection because it just introduces complexities and potentially accessibility issues. So we can affect the font heading color here, but the top level heading is going to remain the same because that's coming from the title field, and so it's just a little bit frustrating. I feel a little bit frustrated, having to add all this extra stuff when really we could just use the headings that are baked into the rich text editor and call it good and just move on with the project a little bit, but had to create a custom component so we could essentially define colors. And another feature was to link to particular parts of a page in order to keep the project scope down. We have some predefined pages that we were wanting. Well, there was an idea that we would reorganize the content hierarchy and do in the process of rebuilding this website. And I think the compromise was that rather than creating new custom pages and views, that you could link to particular page elements through the ID tag, through Anchor. And granted, there's no content here to zoom down to or scroll down to, but that's built into web browsers. And so similarly, when defining heading levels, you can specify the slogan and create pages, page links, and subsequently even use those in the navigation menu, which is also a custom feature we built here. You can link to internal pages with specific anchors or no anchor, or external websites with even specifying an anchor there. Again, this very marginally used, if at all, but nonetheless it's code that's crept into this project, which I think projects tend to do. They accrete features that are based on sometimes speculation or marginal edge cases that are just difficult to let go of sometimes, so and you end up getting a little bit of bloat. And it's a compromise. So granted, there's no right or wrong. Specifically, there's just guidelines like heuristics, like try to keep things minimal. Simplicity is a good heuristic. So then the other aspect here is I had set a default value. I'm going to revert that change. I don't think that's the right direction here. The stream field, because the default value assumed a particular theme color choice, and we don't necessarily know what color we'll end up on at the end of the day, and that's difficult to define that both in CSS and then keep it in sync in the Python code. So rather, we should probably not have a default. So I'll just remove that here. So we have these custom stream fields, they're custom blocks. And I'm going to remove this default color. I don't remember if these need to be migrated. How do these keep getting left out? Something's going on with these migrations. Well, what might be happening is that when I change this block definition, then it needs to migrate that into all the other blocks. That's probably the case. All right, so we're going to migrate that. case. Let's just verify. So I'll create a page, and the server needs to be running for that. Whoops, there's my swimming course. And I'll just add that. Get rid of this. Added child page. This is our custom page. And we're going to do heading level 2, and I'm going to do the color none. Publish, and it should just work. Yep, so I'm verified. This, well, it's closed by the pull request 392. So part of that was like a bit of troubleshooting and help requests. Seems like it's working correctly. I might have put in that conditional logic in response. I can't remember exactly the sequence, but in any case, we can close the issue now. Let's see, what else did I assign myself to? Minor wording change. Magazine article page. So we've got this metadata table. Right here. So it's right there. Simple change. All right, so that is under the theme, magazine, template, article, right here. Yeah, those are the trivial changes, so to speak. The spacers is an interesting feature, and it essentially boils down to a custom block. I didn't put much information here. I have it in my mind based on the discussions, but and the title is pretty kind of explanatory. Essentially, the context is that the magazine editor is used to working in like print layout design, like InDesign and things like that, and still is taking some time to get, used to the responsive and dynamic nature of web layout. But granted, so there's naturally some requests for being able to change colors, as we've seen, of things, and also a little bit of spacing and padding issues where the defaults in the theme or the style might not quite suit the visual aesthetic that the editor is looking for. So what we can do is basically add in this case, a small block that doesn't have any content per se. It's just a spacer block. And that then will satisfy the request that sometimes a paragraph or a list is too close to the following item. I believe this is a small, and it's kind of one of those things that's probably not going to be used very often, and it's kind of another example of just the accretion of features in software sometimes based on relatively small use cases. I'm not sure the exact how often this will be used, but I think it's not the key. But in any case, we'll have another item here that will be listed in the types of blocks that you can use. And I think the template is just going to have an inline style for however many M's you specify, M values. I think it's such a small kind of change code-wise, I can fit it into this pull request. Probably close it out here, and we're getting pretty close to having all of the items from this sandbox feedback session merged. So let's go ahead and do that. So to define Wagtail blocks, it's pretty straightforward. You define a class and kind of block attributes and specify a template. And I can break this out into a separate pull request, which would allow us to review the implementation, and take it in different directions without blocking the current pull request. In fact, I think I'll do that. So that way, the pull request with fairly minimal changes here, I don't think that's debatable. I think we've just agreed to do that. So I'll go ahead and just, in fact, merge that. I'll send myself to that, and this. I'll start with this custom block since I'm already here and in that mindset. And then I'll have to figure out where we're going to use it, but at least I'll have a block to demonstrate. And I think we're just going to specify this in M values, although pixel values are okay. For layout-oriented stuff, pixel values is often okay. Otherwise, we typically use M values to keep things responsive, basically mobile responsive. Let's go with M values, 1, 2, or 3 M. If we don't like it, then we'll change it. So it's essentially this. So we'll call it spacer block. Okay, that's right. just makes it easier for me to find stuff. And since there's no dependencies, in this code, I think the definition order doesn't matter. Oops, that was the main branch. I could have still branched off of it. Anyway. All right, and it's a small one field block. And let me just double check the Wagtail style guide that we've got enabled here. Oh yeah, that's another problem. Oh no, logged in. All right. List all the icons. No, I don't. That was a typo. Oh, I'm on the wrong site. That is a hazard. When doing development, make sure you're on local development environment. I should probably set something up to indicate that I'm local and not. Okay, so then spacer would be arrows up down. Looks pretty good. These are just the icons that ship with Wagtail. Spacer.html, and then we're going to add templates, blocks. Here's a div, and then the style equals height and it's going to be an integer, and then it's in ems for the. Oops, I think you can't have space there. Height in ems. And essentially, once you got a block, then you migrate that into the fields. Up, down, blocks, integer, block, help text. Oh, sorry, it's capital. Now, blocks. So basically we want to find the stream fields in this project. And I just realized I need to instantiate that. Whoa. Not in the navigation menu. News item, I suppose. And WF pages. All right, so one more time. We've got the community page, now has the stream field block. The page now has a spacer block, not stream field. Library item has a spacer block. Magazine article has a spacer block. Navigation menu doesn't. News item has a spacer block. And the WF page has a spacer block. Run the server. We'll try it out. So if I go to just any of the pages I've created, such as this one, we can add spacer. I'm wondering if this should be a predefined list, an integer field, or a floating point field, and just let the editor just specify it. Like you can, because right here I can go like values. I can set a min max. I'll leave these questions to the editor, but that's the point right here, is you can just put some spacing there if you want 10 ims. And maybe that's okay. It's a foot gun. It's so the editor needs to have the responsibility to use it responsibly, because it will affect. Oh yeah, that's not how that works, is it? How do you get to the mobile anyway? But for now, I think no max value is okay. Integers is okay. The floating point is a bit much. Then you run the risk of getting into like sub-pixel spacing, and it's just, I think, yeah, this is already an interesting compromise. So let's just open a pull request with this change for discussion later this evening. We'll use it separate commit. It closes number 395. Very cool. create pull requests and get some feedback tonight. I can set a max value on that integer field. I'm pretty sure it's kind of trivial change to make. Yeah, but I'll leave it for now. Very cool. I think that's a good stopping point. There's several issues closed, one pending issue, and the next session I can kind of dig more into these I think these are mostly just tweaks as well, about layout, moving text around, changing text content or color. Yeah, very cool. So I'm assigned here. I will continue in another session. Thank you very much for checking this out, and if you've got any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below the video. If you'd like to get involved with this or similar projects, you can swing by github.com/westernfriend and leave me a message in the discussion thread. I can get you started with Wagtail and Django development, or similarly, I'm working on another couple of Django projects, and I'm trying to merge a JavaScript project into Django, or I think it's kind of like revitalize it by porting it over to Django. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity to get some open source contributions, and I'm glad to help with any other questions you've got.